Hello everybody. You'll be delighted to know, I'm quite sure, that we are moving on from landforms. Hurrah! We are starting coastal management, which if you've done coast before will be quite familiar to you, should be revision. Please don't panic if you've not studied it, it's not particularly difficult. It's just there are quite a few words to learn, but it's not particularly complicated. Management begins on page 42 of your module booklet. So if you could dig that out, maybe a pen or a pencil for some notes, and I will introduce it to you. Okay, that's a pretty good question, isn't it? Why do we bother? Hopefully it's becoming fairly familiar in geography that we often talk about causes of a problem, impacts of a problem and responses to a problem. Causes, impacts, responses. It's a very standard set of kind of subheadings, if you like, for geography. We have established the causes of problems on coastlines would be things like erosion caused by storms, e.g. 2014, and mass movement and all those kinds of things. The impacts of that we've touched on, but we haven't really looked at. We're going to be looking at case studies this week as well. And then we're talking about responses. So the response to coastal erosion and problems on coastlines is coastal management. Okay, we are in the responses part of that trilogy. But why do we bother? Well, it's generally the reason that we do these things is either because it's expensive or it's damaging in some way. Now this is not one of your case studies for A-level, but this is a reasonably famous example. I think it was called Holbeck Hall. You may have looked at it in GCSE and you can quite clearly see that it was destroyed fairly catastrophically. But we also have properties lost on the east coast of the UK. That was, I believe that actually was 2014. This is Holderness, which some of you will be familiar with. Here it is, here it is. You can see the amount of erosion that's taken place. Here you've got, so if you can get your eye in, see that property? That's that property. So you can see just how much has been lost in that time period. If you open that hyperlink, this PowerPoint is called Coastal Management Methods in the Coasts folder. You can have a look and it just gets it home to you really that coasts are eroding, which means that people lose their homes. It also costs us money because that means loss of property and things like that. So we do need to do something about it. And there are 4 options. This is where you're going to need to take some brief notes on page 42, ladies and gents, okay? So this might be a familiar view to you. If you have been to Charmouth or Lyme Regis or that stretch of coastline, you may have looked at this. This is an area of coastline between Lyme Regis and Charmouth called Black Ven. Now, I'm using that photograph for the do nothing option. It sounds like it might be the lazy option, but that's not true. There are some bits of coastline it is pointless trying to manage. Black Ven here is the largest area of landslides in Europe. What is the point of trying to manage the largest area of landslides in Europe? It's pointless. It would be too difficult, too expensive. There's no property at the top, thank goodness. So there are some stretches of coastline you deliberately don't manage. Do nothing. Right next door, however, this is good old Lyme Regis. And this is an example of hold the line. So the line is effectively there. This is the sea, the coast, and this is the land with all the houses on it. And what you want to do is you want to spend lots and lots of money. Well, you don't want to, but you do spend lots and lots of money trying to keep the sea and the beach where they are, trying to keep the land where it is. So hold the line is spending lots of money to protect a particular stretch of coastline. And if I just go back, the difference basically is it worth protecting? Is there anything of value to protect? Is it possible to protect it? So you have a whole load of thought processes to go through. So hold the line is protect as much as you can. This is a bit of a weird one. Advance the line. Now this, ladies and gents, is Dubai. And what they've done in Dubai is they've started building artificial islands out into the sea. So you might have heard of the Palm. This is the world. Look, you can buy your own luxurious island, and they've been created to look a little bit like a map of the world from above. But for a slightly less exotic example, let me take you to Exmouth, ladies and gents. Okay. No, I'm lying. Sidmouth. Sorry, Sidmouth. So these are offshore breakwaters just off the coast of Sidmouth, and I'll explain to you how they work another day. But you can see that they have been created in the water. So advance the line is not a very common form of management, but it's where you actually extend the coastline or you build a structure in the sea. All right. Managed retreat. Okay. Retreat gives you the impression of going backwards, and that is exactly the impression that you are supposed to get. With managed retreat, you accept that you are going to lose your coastline to the sea. The erosion problem might be too great, or the property might not be that valuable. So this, you're looking here at a photograph of Charmouth. You can see Blackven in the distance, and then if you could see to the left of that photograph, you would see Lyme Regis. Blackven is do nothing, Charmouth is managed retreat. So you know that the sea is going to erode Charmouth. You know you're going to lose it, but you manage that process. So when it becomes obvious that this heritage centre cannot be protected anymore, they will turn off the electricity. They will get the glass out of the windows. They'll remove the electronic equipment. They will close this car park so people can't get caught unawares. They'll close the road. In decades to come, if the erosion has got as far as this house, these people will obviously be told they need to move, and so on and so forth. You allow the erosion to happen in a managed, controlled way. All right, so they are your 4 options. How on earth do you decide which of those you're supposed to do? Oh, by the way, the hyperlink at the bottom of that page, if you live near Minehead or Porlock, there is an example of managed retreat near you as well. So you might be interested in that. This, ladies and gents, is how you decide. It's called cost-benefit analysis. And to be honest, it's a really simple process. And human beings do cost-benefit analysis without thinking about it in their heads constantly. So if you've got a decision to make, you will weigh up, you know, both sides of the decision. Sometimes you can do it in a matter of seconds, sometimes it will take you longer. And what you're doing is you're trying to work out the consequences for the different options that you've got. Well, that's all cost-benefit analysis is. Because if you're trying to decide which bits of coastline you're going to spend money on and which bits you're not, that can be quite an emotional decision. Now the hyperlink, I'm not going to play it to you here, but the hyperlink really proves this point. It's quite an emotional lady who's losing her house because the coast is eroding and no one's helping her, and she thinks that that's terrible, which I'm sure all of us would completely agree if we were in her position. But we need to put ourselves in the position of somebody whose job it is to decide which bits of coastline should be protected. And the best way to make that decision is cost-benefit analysis. Now, I've got an example on page 42 for you. Annoyingly, it's nothing to do with coasts, for which I can only apologise. It's an example for a computerised customer service system. But what it does is it gets across to you the basic principle. So they have added up the costs of making their customer service system computerised, which come to £116,900. And then they've estimated the benefits of that, I'll close that notification, per year. And the benefits per year are £185,000. That is an absolute easy decision. Every year, the benefits will outweigh the initial cost. It's a no-brainer, decision made, you go for the computerised customer service system. That's what you do in Coasts. You work out how much it's going to cost you to, let's say, protect Lyme Regis. You try and estimate the benefits in financial terms, which is not obviously easy, and you get an outcome. And if the costs are higher than the benefits, you don't do anything. And if the benefits outweigh the costs, you do something. All right, so it's a decision-making system. And just to go back to this, so Black Ven, if you do the sums, it's not worth protecting. It's too complicated. There's nothing at the top. Let's not bother. Lyme Regis, loads of businesses, loads of houses, really popular destination, worth protecting. Dubai, Advance the Line, worth protecting. In fact, let's add as many islands and things as much as you can. Sidmouth, worth protecting. Yarmouth, worth protecting up to a certain amount, not millions and millions of pounds. You can see they've done a little bit here. There's a little bit of riprap, there's a seawall. I'll explain all of these things to you this week, don't worry. But they're not throwing millions of pounds because there's not as much to protect there as there is there. All right? So you do it in financial terms. It takes the emotion out of it, which you can see in that YouTube clip if you wish, and it makes it a much easier decision for people to make. Now, the next video that I'm going to do is going to talk you through the kind of options within that. So you've got your four main options about actually what you're going to do, and then once you've made your decision that you're going to do something, maybe it's manage retreat, maybe it's hold the line, maybe it's advance the line. So you've got three options which involve doing something. These are your choices. I'm going to finish today's video by talking about the difference between hard and soft engineering. And actually, there are some really good definitions already written for you on pages 44 and 45 of your module. So you could just highlight those or asterisk them. Hard engineering essentially is something that you make, and you're trying to stop natural processes, stop erosion, stop longshore drift, whatever it happens to be. Whereas soft engineering is where you're trying to be much more natural, you're trying to be much more sustainable. All right, so if you've never studied this before, the difference between those two is not particularly difficult. Where you're going to have to spend a little bit more time and effort is learning all of these sub-options. What on earth is riprap? How is that different to a revetment? And that's what my next video is going to be about. You will have noticed, if you've been looking at pages 44 and 45 as advised, that I've included some tables from a textbook which give you all of the writing and all of the information about these. What I'm going to do in the next video is show you photographs and kind of just talk you through them. Okay, so that is your introduction to management for today. See you in the next one. Thanks everyone.